Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Kano Tryharding Modern. Now, today I have an experimental Orzhov Coffers list that I've been working on for a little bit now. I've done some testing this morning with it. I've got a feeling it's got a pretty big pitfall in the card advantage department. I'm not entirely sure how to fix it, but I do have some ideas, and I'm going to try running it as is. I suspect it will not perform as well as I hope. That will partially be due to the fact that I do not have as much experience with this deck as I do with the mono black version. I'm still figuring out the best ways to handle the removal situation. It might be incorrect to be playing a black-white deck and not be playing Stoneforge Mystic, because the opportunity cost of doing so is so low, and the payoff is huge. And I think there's a few other things that need to be tweaked. But without further ado, let's get into the deck tech here. So I went down to 3 Thoughtseize and 3 Inquisition. Honestly, I said before in the mono black version, I probably should be running 8 of these, no less than 7. But I couldn't think of what else to cut. So we're probably a little bit under where we need to be on the hand hate department. I've got Fatal Push also in the 1-drop slot. In the 2-drop slot, I've got Profane Tutor. I still think that's probably one of our best spells in this deck. It can just go get whatever we need. In the 2-drop slot, and I guess technically higher, we have Erebos' Intervention, which is going to gain us a bunch of life or exile a bunch of cards from graveyard. I've gone down to 2 in this version because we have a lot of other good removal, and we don't really need this as much. We're playing 3 Prismatic Ending, because Prismatic Ending is probably one of the best, if not the best, quote-unquote kill spells in the modern format currently. We're already killing stuff at sorcery speed. We're playing white. We probably should be playing this. Even if we only ever play this on 1 or 2, it is good. We have a Blood Crypt and a Savai Triome, or 2 Savai Triomes, so we do have some capability of playing this with red. If our opponent plays Blood Moon, we can Prismatic Ending to answer Blood Moon. Everything's fine and dandy. We have Vanishing Verse, which is a 2-mana exile target monocolored permanent. I was originally running a lot more of these, but the problem is I found that generally we only ever really needed to cast 1. And a lot of our opponents will have multicolored threats, they'll have multicolored planeswalkers, they'll have multicolored creatures, they'll have multicolored enchantments, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So like this generally finds 1 good target a game, and the second one tends to fall off really hard. So I like playing the Singleton. In the 2-mana removal spot, we also have Dam to destroy a single creature. Because we're Orzhov, we can also overload it to destroy all creatures. This card fills 2 different roles in a single card. We're only playing 2 because we do have access to much better removal, but the versatility of this card cannot be understated, and it is quite powerful. Because of the Prismatic Ending Converge, we're playing Valky Tybalt. Our intent is to cast the back half of this card exclusively, though there are some circumstances under which we may want to cast the front half. I think this is a pretty free splash, given that we have 3 red mana sources in the deck. I have not cast him yet. In any of my testing, I've not even seen him, so I don't know how good he's going to be. In the 3-drop slot, things get a little bit interesting. So we have Phyrexian Arena. This is a tutor target for when we just need card advantage. We're still early in the game. So like if we suspend Profane Tutor and we cast a removal spell on 3 and we're basically out of cards, we're going to go get Phyrexian Arena. We have Anguished Unmaking as a catch-all instant speed answer for everything. This could be Utter End, but that costs 1 more mana, and I'm not a fan of the life loss, but being able to hit basically anything seems pretty good. The instant speed could be relevant over Vindicate, which we are also running as a 2 of. I don't like how much sorcery speed action we're playing in this deck, but I think Vindicate's kind of a given that we should be playing it. Also, we're playing Kaya's Guile. This card is crazy. Each of the 4 modes can be relevant and is relevant frequently. And it's just a really, really good, strong card. Then we're playing Kaya, Orzhov Usurper. This is a hedge against graveyard decks. It's additional removal against permanents with mana value 1 or less, i.e. Ragavan. Its ult can win the game, but it's not probably going to happen. It is possible. In the 4-mana slot, I kept 1 Baleful Mastery. I really like this card, and I think it's important to have in any style of deck like this, even with all of the additional removal. A lot of our new removal does not hit Planeswalkers, like Kaya's Guile, Dam, and like Fatal Push, Erebos' Intervention, so I think it's still important to be able to have Planeswalker-specific removal. Still keeping Mastermind's Acquisition, because getting stuff out of the sideboard is great. We have Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, as one of our new threats. This guy has... I brought him in because he performs quite well in the like Orzhov Smallpox style decks. He creates tokens that have lifelink, so he can help keep you in the game. He can help offset life loss. His tokens get really, really big because you just like, you're like plus, plus, minus, plus, plus, minus. And then all of a sudden, all of your creatures for the rest of the game are really good. I might consider running more of him if I was going to play Lingering Souls, but if I'm playing Lingering Souls, I'm playing Stoneforge Mystic, and you know how that goes. So that's a different deck. It might be better than this deck. We'll see. As an additional board wipe, we are also playing Extinction Event, and we're playing Extinction Event even though it doesn't kill everything all the time, because the exile is super important. There are so many threats right now that can recur themselves from the grave. There are so many creatures that come back from the grave. There's so many creatures that have on-death triggers that just exiling everything you can on the board is going to be good. Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So in the 5-drop slot, I have Increasing Ambition, because the card is just insane. I still love it. I'm still going to play it. It may not be absolutely correct, but it is what I like to dump all of my mana into. Obnixilis. Not 100% that he is the best Planeswalker, especially when we're playing 2 colors, but I didn't want to play anything that was double white. Yet. This could be better off as a Gideon, but like I said, we're lacking card advantage a little bit, so I do want some extra stuff that draws extra cards. Hopefully, the life loss isn't too relevant, but we can always play him as a removal spell if we have to. In the 6-mana slot, I kept Professor Onyx, basically for the Magecraft trigger. The fact that she gives us additional card advantage is great. The Edict is good. The alt wins the game. I also have Sorin, Grim Nemesis. Sorin draws cards, makes your opponent lose life. He can be played as a very, very expensive Lightning Helix or Sorin's Thirst style effect. Just killing a creature or a planeswalker, gaining you life. His alt can win the game and will win the game if he sticks around for a few turns. In the 8-drop slot, I have Worst Fears because it's a great pet card to have in a deck like this. Probably Worst Fears should actually be something like Painful Truths or something like that, but, Archon of Cruelty. Archon of Cruelty is very strong. I think it's definitely better in Reanimator decks, but the fact that we can hardcast it is excellent. Out of the sideboard, a lot of the sideboard has remained unchanged. Necromentia, Kalitas, Curse of Death's Hold, Thought Distortion, and Torment of Hailfire. I like all of those. Replacing the remainder, and also, Emrakul. Replacing the remainder of those, I have Merciless Eviction. Now, Merciless Eviction is a card that I absolutely adore. It doesn't see enough play anywhere, but it's the best of both worlds. It's Austere Command Plus. It exiles anything you want to exile to any extent that you want to exile it. And, you play against Affinity, you cast this card, you evacuation them, and then you Wits End them. Or you upheaval them, and then you exile their whole hand. That's effectively what that is. It can be used as a board wipe. It can be used versus control. It's got modes. If you play against Enduring Ideal, you can just wish for this and then exile their whole board. It's fantastic. I don't know if this deserves a main tech spot. This is what I was considering playing over Extinction Event. It probably doesn't deserve a sideboard slot. There's probably better stuff to do any of the things we want to do, but it's so versatile and it's so cool. And it's a pet card that I used to play in Standard, so I'm putting it in this deck. We have an additional Kaya's Guile for more Grave Hate, more life gain, more Edicts, whatever we need. Fracture, which is kind of an interesting... I saw this in several Orzhov decks that are currently being played. It answers artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers, so it's effectively... What is that card? Disenchant Plus. And I think it's pretty good because of it, so that's why we're running it. And finally, for our Grave Hate, we have Nile Spellbound. We have 3 good options for Grave Hate in this deck. We have... Leyline of the Void, we have Rest in Peace, we have Nile Spellbound, we could even go the surgical route if we wanted to go the surgical route, and I think maybe I would go the surgical route in this deck if I was maximizing on hand hate, but I am not. The reason that I chose Nile Spellbomb is because it has a good opportunity to replace itself, and this deck kind of lacks the card draw that the previous versions have had. So that's my hedge kind of there. It still may not be correct. We're going to do a lot of learning today, so I think that does it for the deck tech, and I will see you guys in round 1. All right. Let's see. We have Dam, Baleful Mastery, Erebos' Intervention, and 1 land gets us to Kaya. We do not have Hand Hate. I'm going to try this. We are on the play, so we do not even have the opportunity of drawing an extra card here. So we'll play a Godless Shrine tapped, pass the turn. Opponent leads on Steam Vents. Hard Evidence. Okay, so this is probably the Polymorph deck, if I had to guess. Which is going to make my next move here feel real bad. I'm going to use Dam. It's a lot worse at basically every other point of the game, unless my opponent resolves Emrakul, at which point alting it is really good. I'd like to draw another land that actually produces mana by itself. Opponent fetches up a Stomping Ground. They play Renin 6. They're going to pick up Scalding Tarn. Okay, I need a land that makes mana. That is not what I asked for. Play Cabal Coffers. I am going to Baleful Mastery Renin 6 while my opponent can't do anything about it. This does give them an extra draw, which is pretty bad for us. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn and passes. We draw Archon of Cruelty. Alright, pass the turn. We don't have any Edict effects, so if my opponent does go for the Polymorph on the Clue, we would have a problem. If they go for Dwarven Mine Transmogrify here, we can Erebos' Intervention. I was really worried that they had the Indomitable Creativity. Okay, stop on my opponent's end step, kill the 1/1, untap. We draw Extinction Event. So even if my opponent does Polymorph into Emrakul, if I draw a Swamp, I can Extinction Event to kill Emrakul. Okay, Prismari Command, opponent goes looting, they makes a treasure. So if they have Indomitable Creativity, they will be able to go for the Polymorph. They discard Emrakul from their hand. They untap, they draw. They play a Dwarven Mine. Alright, it looks like they got it. So we need to draw a Swamp or it is game. Come on, Swamp. It's a Swamp. Play Marsh Flats, crack Marsh Flats. Get a Swamp. Play Extinction Event and name Odd. Exile the Emrakul, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Goes to combat. Attacks for 1. We take it. I really hope they don't have another Emrakul in their deck. If they're only playing 1, we should be okay. So play Cabal Coffers. Activate Coffers. I can either play Kaya and exile their dwarf, or I can play Sorin. And I think I'm going to have to play Sorin here. Need to start making some tokens. Okay, next turn we can Mastermind's Acquisition for an Urborg, and that will let us cast Archon of Cruelty. Okay, opponent cracks Arid Mesa. They get a Sacred Foundry tapped, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Renin 6. They pick up a land. They bolt Sorin. Oh, they down-ticked, excuse me. So they down-ticked on Sorin. We untap. We draw Marsh Flats. So let's see. That gives us 3. We could make it 4 by playing Marsh Flats. Fetching a Swamp. Let me think about this. Okay, so play Marsh Flats. Crack Marsh Flats. Let's get a Swamp. 4, 6. Okay, we do have 8 mana. So we can go for Archon of Cruelty if we want. Otherwise, we can Mastermind's Acquisition for something else. So I think what we do is go to combat, attack Renin 6. I'm kind of expecting my opponent to block. They do. We go up to 17. Okay, we're going to cast Archon. If they have a counter, they have a counter, but they haven't yet. Okay? If they have another Dwarven Mine, they can fetch it up and sacrifice instead. Well, they didn't. We draw Worst Fears. Alright, well, if we Time Warp with this Archon of Cruelty on board, or heck, if we even attack with it uncontested, we win. Opponent fetches up an island. They untap. Prismari Command. They go looting and make a treasure. They loot away a bunch of lands. Hard Evidence. And they can sack a Clue to draw, but... Alright. We didn't even have Urborg that game. So we're bringing in Necromentia 100%. My opponent is playing some number of Planeswalkers, so I probably should bring in Fracture. Kaya's Guile seems better than our targeted removal. And Curse of Death's Hold probably ends the game if it hits them, but they can still Indomitable Creativity what do you call that? Non-creature permanents. I don't know why I struggled so much with that. So Fracture also can hit like a treasure token in response to a creativity, which I don't think my opponent will expect. I actually think I'm going to get rid of Intervention here. It's unlikely my opponent's using the Grave. Odds are we're not going to have the mana to really take advantage of it, so I think it's actually bad in this matchup. Baleful Mastery, while it does hit Planeswalkers, so does Fracture, at much lower cost to us. Prismatic Ending, being sorcery speed, is pretty bad, but it can hit Ren and 6, which I'm kind of excited about. Damn can hit Emrakul. Vanishing Verse can't hit their Planeswalkers, so I actually think I'm going to drop Vanishing Verse. Kaya might be bad here. I think I'm going to drop Kaya. And looking at my deck, the worst card in my deck right now is probably this Fatal Push, actually. Okay, well, I like this hand. While I would feel better if we had some kind of instant speed removal, I think it could be a lot worse. Lead on Godless Shrine tapped, pass the turn. So if my opponent goes for Ren and 6, we can Prismatic Ending to kill it. We can follow that up with a Phyrexian Arena. Okay, opponent fetches up a Ketria Triome. I would like to draw a Necromentia. Opponent plays a Hard Evidence. Okay, this is going to seem really, really silly, but Prismatic Ending and Prismatic Ending. Pass the turn. Now, if they're holding a Polymorph spell, they have to make a token some other way. They don't have 3 mountains for Dwarven Mine because they played Island, so Dwarven Mine enters tapped. Alright, we untap. We draw a Swamp. Play the Swamp. Play Phyrexian Arena. If they have a counterspell, this might draw it. They have a Veil of Summer, which they're playing as a cantrip. That's interesting. Spell Pierce, maybe? No Spell Pierce. Alright. Well, if they don't have a way to set up a token this turn, which appears they do not, we can Mastermind's Acquisition in preparation for an Emrakul. They play Teferi. They unsummon Phyrexian Arena. Okay. We untap. We draw Kaya's Guile. That answers Emrakul, so I am less concerned. Play Marsh Flats. Play Phyrexian Arena. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. They uptick Teferi. Play Bloodstained Mire. Crack Bloodstained Mire. Now, they could have Prismatic Ending, and they could kill Phyrexian Arena with it. They're just going for the Emrakul. Velomachus. Alright. Well, it's a good thing we know they have a transformational sideboard. And they are playing the Time Warps. That's interesting. I didn't know... I wouldn't have known what to name on Necromentia, so this is a big deal. They only cast Prismari Command, but that might give them enough mana for a counterspell of some kind. They make a treasure, which they are. They do loot away Emrakul, so they still have Emrakul. Take 5, go to 15. Let's get a Savai Triome. Untap. I think our best draw would be a Thoughtseize. There it is. And a second one. So play a Swamp. Take a look at what's going on over there. They do have Spell Pierce. They have another Indomitable Creativity. And they have a Scalding Tarn. I think they probably have another Dwarven Mine in their deck. In fact, I'm certain they do. So, take Spell Pierce. Thoughtseize you again. Take Indomitable Creativity. Then we will make you sack and gain life. The only reason I'm gaining life rather than making a 1-1 here is because we're going to be losing a lot of life to Obnixilis and Phyrexian Arena. And I mean, my opponent could just Prismatic Ending here, and they're probably going to. They get another Dwarven Mine. They top-decked another... Okay, it's a Time Warp. I was going to say they top-decked another Transmogrify effect? That'd be pretty good. Okay, they upticked Fairy to 4. So they can instant speed a Prismatic Ending for up to 5. They do have a treasure. Okay, so they're going to get rid of Phyrexian Arena. They play a Bloodstained Mire and are now out of cards. Okay, they hit us for 1. We untap. We draw Marsh Flats. So play Marsh Flats. My opponent is going to draw 2 cards next turn. I cannot Mastermind's Acquisition for Necromentia and cast it. They might have a 4th Dwarven Mine. One moment. It's never not a spam call, and yet I still answer it. Drawing a card might be correct, but I am actually going to downtick here, and the reason that I'm doing that is because if my opponent top decks Transmogrify or Polymorph, then it's okay. If they top deck Indomitable Creativity, we're probably dead. But this, maybe it is just better if I draw. I'm going to draw. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent cracks Bloodstained Mire. As long as they don't get... Okay, they get a Steam Vents. As long as they don't get Indomitable Creativity and get both Velomachus and Emrakul, I think we're okay. Opponent down ticks Teferi to draw an additional card. Prismari Command, they're going to do damage to us and go looting. If they hit Emrakul off of a Polymorph, we can survive. If they hit Velomachus, we probably don't. They loot away Teferi Time Raveler. Okay. So they go to combat, attack us for 1. We take 1, go to 8. They pass, crack Marsh Flats, get Savai Triome, because I do not want to draw a tap land. Untap. We draw another Marsh Flats. I think the safe option is probably down ticking on the dwarf here. I could actually wish for Kaya and exile the dwarf. Alternatively, I can Mastermind's Acquisition for Necromentia and name Emrakul or Velomachus. I think I would name Velomachus because Emrakul we have the opportunity to maybe answer. The problem is my opponent like casting a bunch of lightning bolts or something, but I think we still uptick to draw. We have some ways to gain life in the deck still. We draw Urborg. So play Urborg. We're gonna go get Necromentia, I think. Necromentia, our opponent. Okay, opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. If they get a 4th Dwarven Mine, okay, they do. So they are playing all 4. Name Velomachus Lorehold. Opponent only has the 1. That's interesting. Okay, so they only have Emrakul left, plus a bunch of bolts and a few Planeswalkers. Good to know. So we kind of need to dodge our opponent having a Time Warp, and we need to draw something that's going to gain us life. Kind of wasted the Mastermind's Acquisition, but honestly, I was expecting 2 Velomachus, 1 Emrakul. I'm not very accustomed to my opponent's deck, so 1 at Ob, 1 at us. We go to 5. That's a Bolt plus Prismari Command. We draw Cabal Coffers. We need to be drawing cards, and we need to be drawing not Marsh Flats. Pass the turn. Well, we're dead to Lightning Bolt, and they're attacking us. We're also dead to Prismari Command, so there's a really good chance we're just dead. Yeah. Okay, so what I should have done is instead of getting Necromentia, I should have gotten Kaya's Guile. But now we know what our opponent is polymorphing into. I don't want Vanishing Verse still because it does not answer Velomachus. I may want Baleful Mastery back in because I might need an instant speed way to deal with him. And that's probably better than 1 Prismatic Ending, given that information. And I think Erebos' Intervention is better than Fatal Push. We'll try it like this. I would like to play first. This hand is good. We will keep. We do need to draw 1 Swamp to be mana neutral and an Urborg to be mana positive with this Coffers. Lead on Godless Shrine, tapped. Opponent leads on tap land, so we will suspend Profane Tutor. Baleful Mastery is a pretty good draw. This way, if my opponent tries to... I guess I wouldn't have the opportunity to kill a Teferi before this comes off suspend, so that would be a problem. Opponent plays a tap land. Profane Tutor ticking down. We draw another Fracture, play Coffers. We could answer a Teferi they play, just not a Teferi they play before Profane Tutor comes off. Okay, they cannot play Teferi. That's good. They play Renin 6 for no value. So cast Fracture, then pass. We untap. Profane Tutor coming off suspend. We gotta get Urborg. We draw Kaya's Guile. Play Urborg. We have 5 mana now. Okay, go ahead and pass. They untap. They play an Arid Mesa. They crack an Arid Mesa. They get a Sacred Foundry. So this is probably a Nahiri. It is a Teferi. I don't want a Kaya's Guile and give them something to bounce. So just let this resolve, I guess. They uptick him to 5. So there's a little bit of a problem if my opponent has a Veil of Summer, which the uptick kind of tells me they do have. Go for the Fracture. Okay. Pass the turn. We have Baleful Mastery in case of emergency. And by that I mean, like, token polymorph. There's a Wooded Foothills. Opponent plays a Renin 6, which I do not want to 2-mana Baleful Mastery because it is not an immediate threat. We untap. We draw Godless Shrine, which is a pretty big deal. Play Godless Shrine. That gives us 7 mana. That is 1 less mana than I would like. Alright, we're gonna pass. I need to leave up Kaya's Guile. Actually, I need to leave up double Kaya's Guile, to be completely honest. Okay, opponent gets a Dwarf. They untap. If they don't go for the Polymorph, we're gonna go for the full price Baleful Mastery on Renin 6. If they do go for the Polymorph, we're gonna have to cast probably multiple Kaya's Guiles. Opponent attacks us for 1. Oh my gosh, where did my time go? Opponent fetches up a Steam Vents and Shocks. They're casting a Time Warp. Okay. Well, it's bad, but how bad remains to be seen. Opponent picks up a land, plays Arid Mesa, plays a Velomachus Lorehold. Okay. Make them sack, we'll gain 4. Make them sack, we'll exile their grave. They shouldn't have any free counter spells they can cast on their own turn, yeah. Now we have to Baleful Mastery Renin 6. We draw Increasing Ambition, which is free-ish. Cast Increasing Ambition. Get another Cabal Coffers. Play it. Add a bunch of mana. Baleful Mastery Renin 6, what might be our only opportunity to do that. Pass the turn. Wow, the lag is bad. Okay. If they somehow get on an Emrakul, we can Edict it with Professor Onyx. Provided they don't have a counterspell for Professor Onyx. Or we might be able to flash back Increasing Ambition for an answer. They hard Evidence, they crack a Clue. They play another Renin 6. They uptick to pick up a land. They play a land. We untap. Draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Get more mana. How much mana is that? 12? 15? Play Professor Onyx. Uptick Professor Onyx. Lose a life. Let's get Mastermind's Acquisition. Go digging for a card. Drain our opponent. Get Necromentia. Play Necromentia, playing around Spell Pierce. Name Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. There's only one. There's no other Velomachus. Now they're playing Counterburn. And the game is over! Yes! Orzhov Coffers, doing quite well. I will see you guys in round 2. Well, we have a bunch of lands and a Coffers for round 2 on the draw. This hand doesn't do anything early, and we're going to need early something. Thoughtseize might count, but without a second land, this hand is going to turn out very poorly for us. So I think I have to go to 5. Well, we got that second land we were hoping for. It's a Coffers. I mean, I guess. I'm going to put back 2 cards. It's probably a Thoughtseize and a Prismatic Ending. Alright, well, kind of wish I'd kept the Prismatic Ending, but we did draw a land, which is excellent. Thoughtseize our Tron opponent. They have Ancient Stirrings and Natural Tron. Pass the turn. Well, we do have Vindicate in this version. Okay, they crack Star for green, play Power Plant, then they pass. We drew Vindicate, so Godless Shrine tapped. It's going to come down to whether or not we can draw this 3rd mana, and if we do, we probably win. There's Tower. They have a threat. They have Karn. That's going to be game. Almost certainly going to be game. We draw Blood Crypt. Play Blood Crypt. Pass the turn. Second Tower. Opponent upticks on us. We'll get rid of Fatal Push. Need a mana-producing land. Wormcoil Engine's pretty brutal. Land. And that's not it. Alright, but we know we're against Tron. So versus Tron, we bring in Necromentia. We bring in Fracture. Maybe we bring in Merciless Eviction? Not 100% on that. Fatal Push coming out. Valky, I think, has enough utility. It's going to stay. Kaya can answer Sphere, Stars, and Maps if that became necessary. Kaya's Guile is less good here, as is Dam. Alright, let's try it like this. We're on the play. Hopefully that means we can get a Necromentia off on whatever Tron land they haven't played yet. Would like to play first. This hand is good-ish. We do need white mana, but that's not unreasonable. So we'll keep. I don't think I'm going to play Valky on turn 2. About the only thing it could grab is Wormcoil Engine. Opponent did keep 7. We'll get an Anguished Unmaking. Alright, maybe we just need to put it on board. Wormcoil Engine and Thought-Knot Seer. They will have Natural Tron. Take Thought-Knot. Well, not Natural Tron, but they will have turn 3 Tron. They play Tower. Okay, Hand Hate or White Mana. Gonna need it. That is not Hand Hate. Play Cabal Coffers. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2. Now I could play Phyrexian Arena to force them to down-tick with Wormcoil, or down-tick with Ugin, rather than up-tick him. I think I've got to do that. Because if they up-tick him, then they're only a turn away from ult, and that only gives us 1 turn, potentially. We can deal with Wormcoil because we have Anguished Unmaking. We just need to draw white mana. Obviously, if our opponent has Karn and can hit Urborg, we're just dead in the water. They play oh, they can't play Ugin this turn. Duh. So they can wilt Phyrexian Arena, or they can play Wormcoil. I really need white mana. Opponent goes for the Wormcoil. We get 2 draws at it. So if Triome is tapped white mana, so I have 4 black mana this turn. I cannot play Ob. I can destroy the front half of Wormcoil Engine, but that actually makes it harder to deal with. I'm going to turn Valky into a Thought-Knot Seer, because then they can't down-tick Ugin to kill it. If they do kill it, they get to draw, but this makes Wormcoil a harder attack to justify. Opponent goes to combat, attacks for 6. No blocks. Takes 6, go to 13. Opponent plays a Sanctum of Ugin. So here comes Ugin. They sack Sanctum. They get Ulamog. If they down-tick Ugin to kill Arena, Thought-Knot can kill Ugin. They up-tick him to shoot us. Okay, we untap. I need to draw untapped white mana. That is not what I wanted. So I need to Vindicate a land here to stop a potential Ulamog. Which means I either have to block with Thought-Knot, or I have to choose between Vindicating a land or killing Ugin. And I think Vindicating a land is much stronger. But that means my opponent, if they have a Dismember, will kill us. Unless... it depends on how much mana I have here. I have 6 mana. I could Fracture Ugin and then exile all even converted mana cost cards. Or all even converted mana cost creatures. But this is when it leaves the battlefield. Okay. I think we attack our opponent, Fracture Ugin, and then exile all creatures. If my opponent can cast Ulamog or another threat for a single turn, we're probably toast. But I think that's our best bet. Okay. We gotta dodge something for a single turn. Second tower! Now, if they don't exile both white sources, we can deal with the Ulamog. They get rid of Orzhov Coffers. Well, we can still Anguished Unmaking, and we can still Vindicate. We draw a Thoughtseize and an Urborg. Alright, Urborg. Thoughtseize. Opponent has Thought-Knot Seer, Wilt, Ancient Stirrings, Forest, Power Plant. Thought-Knot Seer matters a lot, so take Thought-Knot Seer. And then we Anguished Unmaking, going to 3. And we have a Phyrexian Arena. We might... I don't want to Vindicate my own Phyrexian Arena. Opponent plays a Forest, so they're going to Ancient Stirrings. If they hit another threat here, we're done. Or a redundant Urza's Mind. We can't take them off of mana. That's an Ugin. That's an Ugin that kills us. So, opponent, luck of the Tron, and we got a little bit unlucky. But I think we did fine. The first round, I think we probably were a lot closer to winning, but the life lost on Anguished Unmaking really hurt. I'm glad that Anguished Unmaking was not a Vanishing Verse, and I'm glad that Anguished Unmaking was not a Utter End, because I think the 3 mana mattered a lot there. But I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright, well, this hand is not keepable because a 1-lander is not keepable. I think I have to try this. So we're going to keep. We're going to put back Godless Shrine. Opponent starts Misty Rainforest. They also mulligan to 6. They get a Steam Vents untapped. And they cycle Curator of Mysteries. We untap, draw Fatal Push, play Marsh Flats, pass the turn. So they're probably Living End, which means we might be able to get a lucky Kaya's Guile off. Let's go ahead and fetch a Savai Triome. Untap. We draw Thoughtseize. So... go for the Thoughtseize. Opponent has Street Wraith and Curator of Mysteries. I'm going to take the Street Wraith because it doesn't cost them mana to cycle it. And that could matter. It's not super likely to matter, but it could matter. Opponent cycles Curator. Cycles Striped Riverwinder. Untaps. Plays Misty. Passes. We untap. Draw Prismatic Ending. Shock Godless Shrine, pass the turn. And now we just have to leave up Kaya's Guile forever. Opponent cracks Misty Rainforest. I could go for it now. They probably don't have a counter. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass the turn. Because they either needed 3 mana for a Force of Negation there, or they needed something else. Vindicate your green mana. Okay, opponent has Subtlety. Now I could Fatal Push that Subtlety, but that makes their living end better if I do. I think I wait. They play a Forest. They attack us for 3. We go to 16, untap. We draw Archon of Cruelty. Keep the untapped Urborg. Fatal Push. Pass the turn. Opponent discards Waker of Waves, puts a Shardless Agent on the bottom. That is, or puts a Shardless Agent in the grave. That's not a good sign. Opponent plays an island. That tells me they have Violent Outburst. Play a Plains. And pass the turn. Okay. Violent Outburst. They cast Living End. I have no way to discard my Archon, or this would be awesome. Baleful Mastery, kill the 7/7. Opponent untaps. They play a Sunken Ruins. They hit us for 8. We untap. Draw Savai Triome. Play it. White, black, red. We can kill a 2/2 so we don't die instantly. But short of drawing Coffers exactly and having Archon resolve uncontested, I don't think we can win. When it plays a tap land, they attack us for 6. We go to 2. We draw Coffers. Okay, big money, no whammies. Big money, no whammies. It resolves. Opponent sacks Subtlety. We draw Marsh Flats. Pass the turn. Such a board swing when that resolves. Problem is our opponent can hit us unblockably because we have swamps. We cycle Striped Riverwinder. Opponent untaps, they draw. So if they can hit us and they have a Fire and Ice, we die. Fire or Ice. They hit us for 3, we go to 2. We're also dead to Stomp. What are they playing? Green and black. Architects of Will. They are Fate Sealing themselves. Okay. We need a removal spell. Preferably one that exiles. Inquisition. So, go to combat. Actually, no, if they had Fire or Ice, we were dead anyway. Never mind. I was going to say, maybe they can tap, but force them to sacrifice, force them to discard, Striped Riverwinder, or Misty Rainforest. We go up to 5, hit them to 2. They crack Scalding Tarn and go to 1, so they didn't like any of the cards on top of their deck. Play Marsh Flats. Pass the turn. Opponent does not top deck the victory. You know why? Because they weren't playing Lightning Bolt. They were playing Fire or Ice, or Fire and Ice. Alright, Necromentia coming in. We're probably going to have to name Crashing Footfalls immediately. Nile's Spellbomb coming in as well, just in case. Okay, what's bad? I think Worst Fears is bad. Prismatic Ending is actually quite bad. It doesn't answer almost any of their creatures. And I do want Merciless Eviction in the deck as another Exile Wrath. And Kaya's Guile. Vindicate is bad because it answers one thing at a time. Same with Anguished Unmaking and Vanishing Verse. Although, Anguished Unmaking and Vanishing Verse hit way more things than Fatal Push ever will, so let's make that swap. And run it back. I guess I could bring in also Kalitas, because I think that exiles if they have a creature put in the graveyard from anywhere. It might be from the battlefield, so maybe not. But yeah, it only exiles from the battlefield, so leaving it out is correct here. Alright. We definitely could have worse hands, so I'm going to keep this. Opponent is griefing us, exiling Architect's Will. They can take Erebos' Intervention or Dam. They take Intervention, so they might be leaning into the fact that, hey, I'm still playing Living End. We draw Kaya's Guile, which is very useful. Play Savai Triome and pass. Opponent cycles a Striped Riverwinder. So we gotta hope that they let us get to 3 mana before they combo, which is not super likely. But if they don't, and they don't hand hate us before then, we also have a Wrath to back up Kaya's Guile. So we can either preemptively deal with it, or deal with it after the fact. Play Marsh Flats, pass the turn. Opponent plays Botanical Sanctum, cycles Street Wraith, Shardless Agent. They're going for the Living End. Alright, Kaya's Guile may not keep us alive. That is a lot of power. And they're taking a card from us because of grief. Well, Erebos' Intervention would have been able to help there. It is unfortunate that they have grief. Fetch up our tap land. We untap. We draw Sorin, which I don't think is going to help. Play Urborg. If I make them sack, they sack the 2/2. Then they still have 21 damage. And I can either gain 4 and go to 23, or I can make a 1/1 they maybe can interact with. So make them sack and we'll gain life. We basically have to top deck our other Dam. I really dislike that Living End can play Hand Hate now. They hit us, we go to 2, they play Steam Vents tapped. We untap, we draw Marsh Flats, and go to game 3. Okay, well I kept a hand that was bad against it. And run it back. Alright, game 3. This is a mulligan. This is also a mulligan. This is also a mulligan. Alright. Boom, got him. We'll keep 4. Put back everything we can't cast. I either need to put back Coffers or Arena. I could put back an Inquisition or a Thoughtseize, keep Arena, because that might be the only way I can dig myself out, but my opponent mulliganed to 5, so something tells me I want both Hand Hate spells. Coffers is not going to be a land unless I draw Urborg. Alright, I guess we're keeping a 1-lander. Fetch. Shock Godless Shrine. Thoughtseize. Opponent has Striped Riverwinder, Shardless Agent, Curator. Take Shardless Agent, pass the turn. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn. We draw a land, mercifully, pass the turn. No sense in Inquisitioning just yet. Okay, opponent gets a Breeding Pool, cycles the Riverwinder. They play Scalding Tarn, then they pass. We untap. We draw Kaya's Guile. Inquisition. They drew Living End. Take Living End from them, pass the turn. This opponent fetches, so they decrease their chances of cycling into a land. They cycle Curator. They cycle Curator. Okay, it's going to come down to whether or not they can cascade this turn and whether or not we draw land. Got it. So not only did I try to concede, but Moto crashed during my concession. Okay, there we go. It's still doing stuff. Alright, there we go. I think we had the tools to deal with that. We just didn't get them. Mulligans in this deck have been terrible. Like, just gonna look at this really quick, just viewing this deck. Like, we had Necromentia, we had Nile Spellbomb, we had to mulligan to 4. So we're effectively playing a 21 land deck unless we have Cabal Coffers and Urborg in our opener. We've been having trouble getting white mana despite playing like half of our mana being white sources. Especially because Savai Triome's entering tapped, but there is no other untapped plane swap. And we don't want to play too many more planes, because if we play a planes, then we have the Urborg, or we have the Castle Locthwain problem that the mono-black version had. If there was one more untapped plane swap that we could play, this deck's mana would be so much better. Just like infinitely better. But, alright, I'll see you guys in round 4. Alright, round 4, and we're on the play. We have Prismatic Ending. I think I'm going to keep this. We draw Cabal Coffers, it's going to be great. We draw any early game, it's going to be great. Start on Savai Triome, pass the turn. Opponent leads on Scalding Tarn. Is this the same player? Okay, it is not. They play Esper Sentinel. We draw Profane Tutor. I think I am going to Prismatic Ending here. Oh, I forgot to play a land first. Oh well. Pass the turn. So I let them have a free draw there that I probably shouldn't have. They play Scalding Tarn, they crack it. To be fair, I haven't played against that card that much. They play another Esper Sentinel. We untap and draw Thoughtseize. Play a Swamp. Suspend Profane Tutor. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Flooded Strand. They play Thopter Foundry. Interesting. We draw Erebos' Intervention. Play Urborg. I can kill the Sentinel and then they can turn it into a Thopter. I think I would rather just Thoughtseize. They do have Sword of the Meek, which I might be able to get with Erebos' Intervention. I'm going to take Urza from them. Pass the turn. They crack Flooded Strand. They get an island. They untap. They crack Flooded Strand. They get an island. They play Sword. Then they attack us for 1. Take 1. And then they equip the sword. Interesting. We untap. Profane Tutor coming off Suspend. They can draw a card. I think we get Coffers here. Yeah, let's get Coffers. Then we draw. Vanishing Verse. Play Coffers. Brings us up to 7 mana. Let's Vanishing Verse the Esper Sentinel. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Flooded Strand. They play Teferi. That is a problem. God, I hate this card. Okay. It's bad enough, like, when you can, like, when your opponent is playing this in control, right? And you're just like, great, now I can't interact on their turn. And just wins the control matchup. But, like, it's so much worse when your opponent is playing a combo deck. We untap. Draw Blood Crypt. Shock Blood Crypt. Play Coffer, or activate Coffers, get Professor Onyx out. Uptick. I guess we'll take the board wipe. Yeah. Alright. Pass the turn. They make a Thopter, they gain life. They make a Thopter, they gain life. So if they can find an Urza, they have infinite mana, and they can cast their whole deck, it just takes a while. I don't have Stony Silence in the side. I do have Merciless Eviction, though it's not likely that's going to be relevant. Opponent attacks Professor Onyx for 6. She goes to 3. We untap. Draw Obnixilis. Uptick Professor Onyx. We can get an Anguished Unmaking, which is an answer for Teferi. So, Anguished Unmaking, Teferi. Drain our opponent. I could have hit Thopter Foundry here, but I feel relatively comfortable in interacting with the combo now. So Extinction Event, drain our opponent again. Choose Even. Pass the turn. So we have to wait until our opponent sacks for the last time, because presumably they use all of their mana here. If they leave even one activation, we can't get that sword, because they have another non-token artifact they can sack. Okay, drain our opponent. Exile Sword and Urza. Opponent gets a Thopter. If they have another sword, we're equally as in trouble, and they can kill Professor Onyx this turn, which is bad. They play Pentad Prism. Okay, Professor Onyx going away. We take 1. Down to 15. Untap. Draw Godless Shrine. Shock Godless Shrine. Activate Coffers. Play Obnixilis. Uptick. We draw Vindicate. Yep. Cast Dam. Overloaded. Okay. Pass the turn. Next turn we're probably going to have to Vindicate Thopter Foundry. Opponent sacks Witching Well. Does not go for any Thopter Foundry activations. They play Glimmer Void. Black, green, blue, white. Bring to Light? Prismatic Ending on 5, okay. That makes more sense. Opponent plays Relic, and they pass. We untap and draw a Swamp. Vindicate Thopter Foundry. Opponent sacks the Foundry to itself. Now we pass. Opponent untaps. They play a Witching Well. They sack Witching Well to draw. They play another Pentad Prism. They attack us for 1. We go to 11. So this is basically just going to come down to whether or not we can actually draw cards. Another Thopter Foundry. We untap. We draw an Urborg. That is not a card. Play a Swamp, pass the turn. Opponent cracks Relic to draw. Hits us for 1. We go to 10. Then they pass. We untap. Draw another Coffers. Well, if we can draw a tutor, we win. Another Witching Well. And they sack it to draw cards. They play a land. They go to combat. They hit us for 1. Honestly, they could have just sacked these Pentad Prisms and then, like, what are we going to do? Untap. We draw Fatal Push. Pass the turn. I can turn this on at sorcery speed to kill an Urza if they happen to draw one, but that doesn't matter. If they draw an Urza, we're dead. Like ultra super dead. It's like they read my mind. Alright. And while that may not kill us exactly this turn, we're not coming back from that. Yo, where were all these cards like 3 turns ago? I just click submit. I need Fracture, Merciless Eviction, and Necromentia. Going down Vanishing Verse, Baleful Mastery, Push, Valky, Push, Ending. That was a very rapid resubmission, and I think I actually do kind of need... I might need Push and Verse, actually. It might be Prismatic Ending that I'm supposed to side out. I don't know. Alright, we got a hand. It does stuff. We're keeping. Lead on Godless Shrine tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent plays an Esper Sentinel, which, while annoying, I don't think I actually need to do anything about yet. Suspend Profane Tutor. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays a Thopter Foundry. They're going to hit us for 1. So we are going to Prismatic Ending to kill Thopter Foundry while paying for Esper Sentinel, of course. We draw another Urborg. That's not good. Play Urborg. Prismatic Ending. Pay for Esper Sentinel because we have nothing else to do with the mana. Question is, what do we get off Profane Tutor? I could get like a Sorin. Maybe that matters. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn. They play Witching Well. They go Scrying. They crack Scalding Tarn for a Steam Vents. They play Goblin Engineer. So they get to put whatever they want in the grave. And they hit us for 1. So Profane Tutor coming off Suspend. Okay, cast it. Pay for Esper Sentinel. Okay, I think getting Coffers is correct. Because we need to be able to cast the spells we draw. We draw Profane Tutor. That's not actually that bad. So then we make each opponent sack and then exile their grave. Okay. So opponent loses Goblin Engineer and the Thopter Foundry in the grave. I kind of wish Profane Tutor had a mana cost, like an actual mana cost instead of costing 0. Like, if Profane Tutor costs like 6 or 8 mana even, I think it'd be fine. So play Marsh Flats, suspend Profane Tutor, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play Ashiok, which is a big problem. We don't care about the searching our library part so much, except for the fact that we just suspended a tutor. We don't really care about the milling either. Because in theory, we can just top deck answers. In practice, we probably won't, especially just having milled a Fracture. But if we draw an answer to Ashiok before Profane Tutor comes off, it'll be obviously much better. Doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. We'll play Cabal Coffers. I don't particularly care about the 1/1, so we'll just pass. Opponent plays Teferi, so that's 2 different reasons we're not playing Profane Tutor. They milled our Archon of Cruelty as well as our Worst Fears, so that's actually really bad. So Mastermind's Acquisition is a dead draw. We need to draw like Obnixilis. Well, I guess Mastermind's Acquisition we could get Torment of Hailfire out of the sideboard. It says we can't search our library. It doesn't say we can't wish. We draw Thoughtseize. So, Thoughtseize you. Pay 1. Sword of the Meek, Sword of the Meek, Portable Hull. Portable Hull. Keep the swords in hand. Play Blood Crypt tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent might start playing and equipping the swords. Second Esper Sentinel. Okay. They hit us for 1. They should have done that in the reverse order, because then they could have equipped the Esper Sentinel. Then I might actually have to pay a bunch of mana. They mill us. Milling Sorin Grim Nemesis. We're not a deck that plays a ton of ways to win the game, so if they just keep milling cards that matter versus cards that don't, like, we're gonna lose. So pay for Esper Sentinels so they don't draw cards. Kill them both. Pass the turn. They play Goblin Engineer. They're probably going to go put Thopter Foundry in the grave, because they still have 2 in their deck. Witching Well, huh? So they mill Necromentia, Inquisition, Vindicate. We untap. Come on, Masterminds Acquisition. Extinction Event. Well. Extinction Event. Even. Pass the turn. Man, if Extinction Event hit creatures and planeswalkers, that'd be so good. Because then we would just say odd and get rid of all of our problems. Opponent upticks to Fairy. Draws cards off of Witching Well. Untap. Draw Cabal Coffers number 3. Infinite mana achieved. Well, they have Thopter Sword now. They downtick to draw an extra card. And they are passing. We untap. We draw Necromentia. So I guess we Necromentia them and name Urza? Because they already have the combo on board. We can just take away the actual infinite combo from them. They're not holding any of them, and they're holding a second Ashiok. So they're actually just going to mill us out. I'm actually getting upset with the way this game is going. So they milled us again. We untap. Draw land. Pass. They mill us again. Getting rid of another Sorin. We're still on like Mastermind's Acquisition or Bust. They play Witching Well. They get some Scries. We untap. Draw nothing. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Plays a land. They mill us again. There's Mastermind's Acquisition, and that's our final way to win. Man. Ashiok is way less egregious than the others. But Ashiok, Teferi, and Narset from War of the Spark are design mistakes. Each one of them shuts off a core component of the game. Ashiok to a much lesser extent. And they're one-sided. I really miss the symmetrical effect design that Magic used to have. Because it made you play in an interesting way. It made you design your deck in an interesting way. And those don't. Those are just power for the sake of power, and you run them or you don't. Or you run them and win with them because they're powerful. You don't have to design around them. So, anyway, really disappointing loss, but I'll see you guys in round 5. Alrighty, round 5, we're on the draw. We have no white mana and 2 white cards in hand, along with 2 coffers, so I'm going to mulligan. And I can work with this. I will keep. We're going to put back a Swamp. Alright. Opponent starts with an Arid Mesa, then passes. We draw Godless Shrine, so lead on a Thoughtseize. Shark Typhoon, Prismatic Ending, and Expressive Iteration. I think we gotta take Expressive Iteration. Pass the turn. So this might be the control deck. There is one that I guess took down a tournament recently. I briefly saw somebody made a video on it. I didn't pay much attention though. So they fetch up a Ketria Triome, and they play a Hollowed Fountain tapped. We untap. Draw Godless Shrine. Play Marsh Flats. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. They play a Flooded Strand. Let's go ahead and get a Savai Triome. Untap. We get a Vindicate. Yeah, let's Vindicate a land. I'm not above this. They fetch with Flooded Strand. They get a tap land, and they lose their Ketria Triome. They untap. They shock a Stomping Ground. They play Teferi, and they down-tick him to draw. We untap and draw an Urborg, so we can either Prismatic Ending, or we can Mastermind's Acquisition. I feel like we need to Prismatic Ending. Pass the turn. Okay. We untap. We draw Erebos' Intervention. I do need a Coffers, but I also need a win condition. So let's try and search our library for a card. Okay, opponent lets us have it. I think we're going to go ahead and get Sorin Grim Nemesis. Then play a Godless Shrine tapped. Pass the turn. So opponent is probably cycling Shark Typhoon. Okay, they make a 2/2. They untap. They play a Renin 6, so they're going to pick up a fetch land. They play a fetch land, then they pass. Well, they hit us for 2 and pass. We untap, draw an Inquisition. Inquisition. Maybe playing Sorin was right here, but I don't know if my opponent's actually playing counterspells or not. Lightning Bolt, Expressive Iteration, Prismatic Ending, Supreme Verdict. Bolt is the most annoying, so I'm going to take Bolt. Play an Urborg, and let's gain some life and kill the thing. We're probably going to just use the Draw Cards mode on Sorin. I don't want to down-tick to kill Renin 6, because if my opponent draws another Lightning Bolt, or basically anything, he's going to be useless. So opponent expressively iterates. They exile a mountain. They play the mountain. They uptick Renin 6 to 5. We untap. Draw a swamp. Play a swamp. Playing around Censor, I guess. Play Sorin. He can't be Prismatic Ended, so draw a card. Pass the turn. Opponent loses no life because we revealed a land. Opponent bolts Sorin, then cycles a Ketria Triome. They untap. So I guess they're hoping for a Snapcaster or another Lightning Bolt. They pick up the Ketria Triome. They cycle it again. Then they play a Misty. So we're going to need to draw a Planeswalker removal. We draw nothing. Uptick. We draw Worst Fears, which is definitely a thing. 8 mana. Worst Fears. So we just shot our opponent for 8. And now we control them for a turn. Okay. They untap. They draw a Snapcaster. Let's see. Snapcaster Mage. Let it resolve. Target Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt themselves. Prismatic End. Renin 6 ping themselves. Prismatic Ending. Kill Renin 6. Prismatic Ending. Kill Snapcaster Mage. Alright, so they're holding Verdict. Cool. We untap, we draw Extinction Event, uptick Sorin. Most non-land cards in our deck will kill our opponent. Professor Onyx kills our opponent. That was fun. So we're bringing in Thought Distortion, 100%. Definitely bringing in the Fractures, Merciless Eviction. Dam is less important here. Vanishing Verse doesn't hit any of their Planeswalkers, but it hits most of their creatures. Most of their creatures also die to Fatal Push, so I think Vanishing Verse needs to come out. And then I probably need to cut Extinction Event. Try it like this. Okay, this hand is not keepable. This hand is, though. And I think I put back Kaya's Guile, actually. It's going to be more useful a lot sooner than the other cards in her hand. But at the same time, I don't want to give up on 2 of my best threats. Archon of Cruelty is also huge versus Planeswalkers and stuff. So opponent starts Windswept Teeth and passes. We draw another Cabal Coffers. Play Savai Triome, pass the turn. The reason that I'm starting with Savai Triome and not anything else is I might need a Prismatic Ending on 2 to kill a Renin 6. Opponent is in the tank on their upkeep. Alright. They play a Scalding Tarn and pass. We draw a Godless Shrine, play an Urborg, pass the turn. We can Prismatic Ending 3 different colors with Godless Shrine out. Opponent fetches up a Hallowed Fountain, which we may need to do to answer to Fairy. Opponent plays an island and passes. Draw Godless Shrine. So play Godless Shrine tapped, pass the turn. So next turn we're going to play Coffers, Obnixilis, and then Coffers, Archon? I think that's how that works. Opponent bolts our face. They untap. They play a Plains. Now they play Teferi. They downtick Teferi to draw. Okay. So we untap. Draw Marsh Flats. Play Cabal Coffers. They might have a Spell Pierce, but I would rather them Spell Pierce this than anything else. Okay. We answer to Fairy, pass the turn. Now if they play a big Planeswalker or creature, we can Archon them. Which, unless they have 2 Lightning Bolts, might be difficult for them to answer, because it does not get hit by Prismatic Ending. Draw Worst Fears. Play second Cabal Coffers. Play Archon of Cruelty. Okay. Opponent discards a card. They have nothing to sack. Okay. They counter Archon's trigger with a Veil of Summer, because it is targeted. They play a Misty. 5 mana. They play Big Teferi. Tucking Archon. We untap. We draw Anguished Unmaking. Play a Marsh Flats. How much mana do we have now? 12? We're 1 mana off of Obnixilis plus Worst Fears. So, Anguished Unmaking. Then play Obnixilis. Draw a card. Alright. Pass the turn. So we've successfully answered our opponent's second Planeswalker. Opponent, once again, deep in the tank. Opponent plays Renin 6. Upticks Renin 6. Plays Misty, and passes. We untap. Draw Archon. Uptick Obnixilis. Draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Activate Cabal Coffers. Almost enough to Archon and Worst Fears in the same turn. Play Archon. Okay. Opponent cracks Misty, so they probably have another Veil of Summer. Snapcaster for Veil. Okay. I mean, they still have to answer another Archon. And we have an Obnixilis. Pass the turn. Lose all our mana. Opponent untaps. Red, white, green, blue, Omnath. Opponent draws a card. I think they picked up a fetch land. Oh, am I dead to Scapeshift? I could be dead to Scapeshift here. Prismatic Ending to kill Obnixilis. Okay. We untap. Draw Blood Crypt. Play Marsh Flats. Go to combat. Opponent is going to tap our Archon, then draw. Go to our second main phase. Worst Fears. Pass the turn. Alright. Opponent draws Path. So, downtick Renin 6 to kill Snap. Path to exile Omnath. We will not use its ability. Wow! And that's why we play Worst Fears. That won us both games. No other effect would have. Not from that position. Okay. So, this deck has some problems. The major problem is, I don't know how to make this deck draw any better than it does. So playing this version, we lose out on the consistency of an all-black mana base with a ton of basics. The particular version that I'm playing is not playing any Sign in Blood effects, which I don't know if we should be, I don't know if we shouldn't be. Maybe we ought to be playing Painful Truths, maybe we ought to be playing Read the Bones. Who knows? There's a lot of ways to take this version of the deck. I think Vanishing Verse or a Fatal Push or something needs to come out, and we need to be playing 4 Prismatic Endings. I really, really wish there was another... Like, if the Sunken Hollow cycle had the black-white dual land in it, or if the Fetid Pools cycle had the black-white dual land in it. There is Snowfield Sinkhole, but that's tapped also, with no other benefit other than the fact that it's snow, and we don't need snowlands. I mean, we could play Snowlands and then play Dead of Winter, but we already have better wraths in the form of Dam and Extinction Event and Merciless Eviction than Dead of Winter. I feel like I'm playing too many removal spells. We get access to a lot better removal spells, but we also... I don't know, maybe because we have Kaya's Guile, we don't need to be playing Erebos' Intervention. I know it gains us the most life, but life total seems harder and feels harder to manage in this version, because we have to shock lands, which is one thing that the mono-black version avoided. In the mono-black version, we struggled with life management, and it's possible that we can recover more life while playing white. Like, Kaya can gain us life, Sorin can make life-linking tokens, Big Sorin can be a gigantic lightning helix, and he was also amazing, by the way, because we play so many high mana cost cards, and we flipped an 8-drop with him. Absolutely makes a huge difference. I think we need to be playing Savai Triome, because... And I think playing Valky is probably still correct, because of Prismatic Ending. There is so many things in the 3-drop slot we need to hit that don't get hit by any other piece of removal we have. So one thing that we might consider while playing a deck like this is maybe we play 1 Singleton and Datha Triome. Like, there's no reason to not play 5-color swamps, basically, to get the max value out of Prismatic Ending, provided, of course, the mana base can support it. We had a little bit of trouble with our colored mana early on. We're playing slightly too many white cards with slightly too few white sources. I just don't know how we fit any other ones into this deck. Maybe we play a couple of Bloodstained Mires just to have more fetch lands, but that exacerbates the life loss. So maybe we don't play Thoughtseize. Maybe we max out on Inquisition. We put Thoughtseize in the sideboard, and we fill that slot with something else in the main deck. I don't know. I know a lot of people are very interested in this style of deck, so if anybody has any ideas, if there's anything that I obviously overlooked, please, please, please tell me in the comments below, because I tend to do that. I can't remember everything all the time, and that's pretty evident in how I play, but I do occasionally have some good ideas, and I feel like I'm onto something with this one. I feel like it has the potential to be better than the mono-black version. It's probably going to be slightly less consistent, but anyway, that's all I got for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last few times have been earlier than that, so probably just going to say I stream Wednesday evenings or Wednesday afternoon. And yeah, you're all wonderful human beings. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this video. Bye! Hey, just wanted to give a shout out to my patrons for the month of July. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate your support. And if you want to have your guys' names show up in this list, there's a link to my Patreon in the description down below. Thank you all so much.